Entrepreneurs that talk about product market fit, and product market fit is just a moment in market when your marketing is really, really, really successful.
Yeah, yeah.
But
So to break that down though, because I think a lot of people don't understand that they're chasing this nirvana of product market fit, and it doesn't, like, I'm not just saying it doesn't exist.
Yeah.
It doesn't exist in the way that they think it does.
Yeah. No, that's a great launch pad. Product market.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, 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 yeah.
So a lot of people doing what he does.
Mhm.
But that's a lot of people doing what we do. So.
Yeah, there's a lot of noise out there. But equally, man, there's like a lot of people that play basketball.
Exactly,
And the cream rises to the top.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people that play golf. A lot of people that play chess. It's like, how good are you relative to other people?
And it's also like, just because other people play it doesn't mean you should play it.
Yeah.
A lot of people are like, well, they already play.
Dude, chess has been beating. People have been losing to computers in chess since the
Very long
90s.
Oh, way longer than that, son.
When?
Way longer, at like 1700s.
With what?
The Magic Turk. So the Magic Turk was an automaton that was built by, I'm gonna have to look this up, so don't quote me on it, but basically, I think it was like 1700s or maybe even earlier, where they would wheel it to the court of the majesty, and they would bring out these chess players, and it was an automaton that would pull the moves and play chess, and it would beat all of the king's people. And that was like hundreds of years ago when they were first starting to do like robots.
Okay, I was thinking about Big Blue.
Oh yeah. So that was like the commercialization of, hey, we can do this and we can do this repeatedly for like a pretty low cost.
Like the digital.
Yeah.
Arm.
And it's like, that was like the first thing that was like, okay, now let's scale this so everybody can have this like in their pockets on their cell phones.
Yeah.
And that's the intelligence we have today.
But the thinking about it is like, but people still play chess.
Yeah. It's like, yeah, even though you will never be able to beat the highest level of computer, doesn't mean you can't play and learn a lot.
I think it's a little misleading when we talk about computers being more powerful than us, because
Really?
Yeah, because at the end of the day, it takes a lot of power to harness all of the information and make I think a more accurate comparison would be between a computer and all of humanity.
Okay.
That's like a level,
Even playing field.
Yeah, because it's like one for one. Yeah, that might be way more. Like a computer will definitely have the upper hand, but a computer's not just acting on its own. It's literally being backed by a huge compute facility that's crunching a ton of data when just to even be competitive with a person. And then on top of that, it can't even power its own body and move from one area to another area, like one individual machine. Yeah,
Humans do have the millions of years of evolution behind them.
Yeah.
So they do have something up their sleeve. But yeah, it's definitely a one-to-one. I think it's interesting how more and more people, I think more and more businesses are striving to get to that one-to-one replacement, especially when, like, I've just been flooded with emails with like, hire Devon AI, hire these AI like that are gonna do all your code for you. And it's like, I just don't, it can't. It just straight up can't right now. And people are wasting a lot of money on these software tools that can't do what even a junior engineer can do out of college.
Yeah, the thing that I've noticed, man, is, and I'm sure you can speak about this, I know that you've just gotten into Cursor.
Yeah.
And that's been a thing that you've been like focusing on recently, just like really push the limits of it.
Yeah.
But I find that whenever I'm using AI, it can do things well, but it's fuck ups. Pardon my French. It's errors. When it messes up, it's
Catastrophic.
Yeah. And it's like, as a human, am I willing to like just turn it over to an AI? Not right now. I don't have that trust level right now.
I think it's because of the fact that when those catastrophic errors are happening, it's not necessarily what we're saying is like it's writing entire function wrong, but it's messing up like a foundational thing that a human's going to have to go back and like double check its work to correct itself.
Yeah.
Given the right context, the model can produce the right code, but if it's off just by like a foundational piece of like not understanding that my domain model shouldn't have these fields, and it decides to like add those fields, and it, like I don't want that. Like that's a foundational thing that can mess up an entire project where the developer has to then come back in and double check it.
Yeah.
So it's like I think there will be a time when we do want to release it like to the AI completely. But it's so catastrophic because you're not actually learning as you're building. Like you're not letting this AI supercharge your abilities. It's just like hands off. There has to be like a progressive system there.
Yeah.
Where it's like I'm gonna let it supercharge my abilities, but I'm gonna know every single line of code that's written.
Yeah. And
So-
and to say this, like I'm absolutely somebody who's been like I use AI every day.
Every day.
And that's why I feel pretty comfortable saying that it's not a 1-for-1 replacement like people think it is. I think it's a new tool. It's like
The internet.
it's fire. It's like digital fire.
Yeah, that's true too.
You know, like it's revolutionary, but I still don't feel like I'm not convinced that it's a complete replacement. But the extending on that, because I don't think we're saying anything new with that. But what I do think is that it's confusing a lot of people because still people are still trying to make sense of what it is.
Yeah,
And
I think
you're hearing a lot of chatter and talk about this,
lot of noise.
you know. And I think it rightfully so makes people scared. I mean, we have an image of what AI gone wrong looks like in our head.
the dystopian future.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's also funny because it's like people that complain like are spreading the, like fear mongering the most around AI are also the people that are using it the most in their own products.
Right.
It's like no, don't touch that, don't touch that, don't touch that. No, don't. It's scary. It's gonna be terrible for everybody. And then they're like using it,
Bankrolling it. Yeah. It's very interesting. I want to bridge this gap into like the fact that AI, as it sits today, as we're recording this, isn't there, but I think we're extremely bullish on like the fact that it's going to get there. Like it's absolutely going to get there, in the fact that like we will be able to, have just junior devs and probably even senior devs just completely automated with AGI.
Yeah, but the bar
But it's a
always,
process.
but the bar always like rises.
That's true. That's true. It's like if you're going to put out something that would make me as a developer 10x, now your next model has to be me plus 10x.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then better.
Or and somebody sees you operating at 10x, and then somebody's like, "Oh, Jake's operating at 10x. I'm gonna start using AI." And then for some reason they're operating at like 11x what they used to
The whole-
output. Then you're gonna look at that and be like, "Okay, well, I need to like improve too." So I think again, it's more like of a symbiotic relationship that I think we're seeing with AI.
It's
and
also
less
like
of
a process, right? It's like the whole thing that we've talked about quite a bit. It was like product market fit. It's not at one point in time where it's like, okay, we have the singularity.
Yeah.
We're here.
Yeah.
It's like, no, it's a process. You can't just expect it to be completely I guess omnipowerful anytime soon. Although I do think a lot of the ways that we're measuring this stuff is getting skewed, but because the people who are building these foundational models are overfitting for the tests. It's just pretty obvious when you start looking at like basically they're just racing to the top of a benchmark.
Yeah.
But the benchmark, they know what the benchmark is before they built the model.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of overfitting that's happening that I think will
It's like people doing
come to
people
pass.
things.
It'll come to pass in terms of like investors will start going to be like, oh wow, I'm putting my money behind something, and they're just fitting, an SAT score or an ACT score. It has nothing to do with like actual human intelligence.
Yeah.
So we'll also see that come to fruition pretty soon here, where people who aren't actually building intelligence are going to be found out.
Yeah. So we had a interesting week this week.
Yeah, this week was big, man. This is first week of March.
Yes. First
Great
week
week,
of March.
Why don't you start though? Why don't you start?
Well, a couple of things that come to mind is on the product front, we have two major initiatives that we're working through. Our AI. We use AI in constant.
The very scary AI that we have.
Ooh, spooky. and then we have the shop features, the monetization features.
Yeah. That's huge.
Yeah, and so we've definitely, been moving forward, inching forward, and I'm like it's coming to fruition. I'm seeing it there. We had a deployment earlier today, and that was
Yep.
really exciting. So there's that. We went to that networking event. I thought that was pretty cool.
Was really nice.
Just we can be in our lab creating all the time, and then when you actually go out and you communicate it to people, and then you see it being received, that's always rewarding.
It really is. I mean, don't get me wrong, I love being in my dungeon coding, but it is nice to touch grass every once in a while. And then connecting with the people face to face, like it one reminded me how important it is to talk to your customers and just like people in general, like keeping up those social skills and being able to interface in a crowd. And then two, it was just really cool to see, like you said, that message land when I'm saying, hey, our mission here is to help content creators, organize, share, and monetize all of their content, and then also break that stigma of what it means to be an influencer.
Okay.
So many people were like, "Oh yeah, like that's I could see myself doing that," and I think that was just I don't know, super rewarding for me because it's like, yeah, that's like validation that the thing that we're releasing is going to help all these people, and we can work with them one-on-one to get that to happen.
Yeah, make an impact on what people are trying to do, what people are trying to pursue. And like there's a bigger theme that I think we're probably going to get into a little bit later, but of just actually going out there and interacting with people.
Yeah.
I think that everything is in the AI space, but that means that there's opportunities in other areas too.
Okay, what do you mean by
And
that?
other approaches. And I think specifically, like I was talking with a friend who's a founder, and he was saying that it seems like every time we're delivering product or we have a new feature out, it seems like we're just like things are it's like you look up online and somebody's come up with the agentic version of that product. Yeah, and it's like, well shit, where do I even begin to compete? Because it seems like they're using a whole new tech stack that seems to be the modern tech stack, and I can't compete on that. And I think when I just think about going out and interacting with people, being able to understand, okay, this is my user, this is my customer, and they actually don't know anything about what I'm reading about.
Sure.
Or what my peers are reading about, or the latest version of what's actually out there. It makes it so much more clear why we're actually going out there and interacting with people. Like that to me is the process of marketing, and I think that's really, really lost on a lot of like the tech community right now.
It definitely is, and I think what you're talking about specifically is more like the high level of like, how can I start to gain those inches in the arena if everybody else is kind of like just walking away from me in terms of the competition.
Exactly.
What I would say there, like strategically, and this will be something that we'll leave in the episode here, but for a user-facing platform that is going to be used with AI, something like a really basic example is like Drive, like Google Drive. When you have like a Word doc come up, Gemini's right there, and it can kind of help you create whatever doc you want, right?
Yeah.
But for services that are kind of behind that user-facing AI features, there's the whole concept of building an MCP server too. A model context protocol where now you're giving foundational models the ability to interact with your APIs in a way that you didn't have before. And so there's also that strategy of like, hey, if I can't beat them on the user-facing game, then I'm going to build out a bunch of tools on my server so when a foundational model does discover me, they can do everything they want completely automated. Right? And so it keeps yourself relevant in this area of agentic frameworks where it's like, no, like my model now has all these tools to interact with my data where I can actually be a benefit to this ecosystem instead of being something that's lagging behind.
So you're saying like if you're a development shop or building product, you don't necessarily have to go directly to customers and compete there. Right now, a lot of these foundational models are proactively reaching out to different API sources that might be able to fulfill a query.
Yeah,
or
so
to
we
fulfill
have
some of these needs.
Yes, we have this new framework, MCP. I believe it's from Anthropic, which basically defines the best way to describe this would be like an API markdown for the agent. So the agent then can read your MCP protocol and say, oh, I've got a couple of tools here, which are a couple of endpoints. I have a couple of actions I can take on the API, upload a document, perform this action. And then you can kind of provide that schema, on the open web. And so when the agent hits your API, it sees this MCP framework and knows everything it can do. And so if the user asked it to do something that you allow the agent to do, it'll just happen automatically. There's no need to have a developer set up an API key or do anything like that. It's just completely done because you've provided the model a way to interact with your data.
Yeah.
So there is that, and it's becoming kind of the rage right now online. Probably everyone on X is talking about it, and it's becoming very quickly the new way that I think a lot of people are going to interact with agentic frameworks. But we'll see. It's very, very, very new, so I'm sure it'll, be improved or replaced in the next quarter or so.
That's very interesting. That whole dynamic there, because you almost are developing for the foundational models. But I don't think it's all. But I also don't think it's anything that's completely unheard of. I mean, a lot of people would.
It's not unheard of because you also have like a bunch of like, robots.txt, stuff like that, where we do give certain metadata to web crawlers.
Yeah.
So, we've done this in the past. However, this does kind of open Pandora's box a little bit and I was talking about this to someone actually in one of the downtown, to the tech town place that we went this week. And he kind of posited, he was like, is everything on the internet just going to be agents just going around doing like causing all the traffic?
Yeah.
Like eventually there's not going to be a need for a human to be on the internet. Like, if the agent's doing everything for you, the agent's going to be all the traffic on the internet.
Do you believe that, though?
I don't know. I think there's going to be a very large part of the internet traffic that'll be agents. Completely autonomous agents that are just
even
on
right
the internet.
now, like on...
Yeah, exactly. Web crawlers.
Social
there's a bunch
media.
of stuff.
There's, like, just bots that are pure agents.
Exactly.
There's bots that are releasing crypto coins that are making money. They're taking our hard-earned dollar. They're taking our jobs. No, but
I think it's an important thing to recognize that it's like, well, as a website owner or maybe as a product owner of a company, how am I going to make sure I'm measuring the amount of website traffic I'm now having from agents versus real people, and how does that affect my downstream metrics? And then there's so many things that as an entrepreneur we should be thinking about when it comes to like, okay, now a majority of the traffic on the internet is just agents. And how do we adapt to that? So I have a lot of thoughts on that, but
no, I mean,
that's a step into the bucket there.
Well, it's a really interesting discussion because I think that we're moving more and more in that direction.
Yeah.
And it seems to be widening more and more. And I also think that somebody said this before, and it also calls back to what we were talking about earlier. In the future, an AI is going to take your job. It's going to be a person that's using AI. AI is going to take your job.
Absolutely.
And so understanding the opportunities is very, very helpful. But I think another thing that, in terms of opportunity that's in front of us is, and everybody listening, is I think that there's a huge opportunity to market and become more people focused with the tools that we have right now.
Yeah.
Because I think at the end of the day, that's more core to like who people are as people. Like,
I think it's also a first principles thinking.
Yeah, in the sense that like we are all social animals, and so if you don't have any type of market or people that you're interacting with on a social basis, then it's really hard to even sell a product. Like, all that stuff is downstream of human to human interactions, and I think the better that the technology gets, the more it puts the focus on people to people interactions. And I think that's a big thing that we're seeing right now. Even though that there are a whole bunch more opportunities, because I think even if you are developing for a foundational model to call your application, then via endpoints or via APIs or whatever it might be, you still have to have something that people are searching for.
I think,
see what I mean by that?
What's interesting is, and I might be wrong about this, but I think the amount of human-to-human interactions may go down, but I think it means that every single human-to-human interaction that you do have is infinitely more valuable.
Yeah.
Because you're not just talking to maybe an automated process that just does whatever it's programmed to do and just moves on. Like, the human interactions that you will have will be actually meaningful, and you'll be able to be like, oh, like I learned something, or like I really want to connect with that person again.
More of that. Well, and I feel even now, whenever I'm reaching out and I get an automated bot, I am like, I'd rather just be talking to a person right now.
Yeah.
That I know can guide me through this system, especially if it's something I'm not familiar with. And I think that they've become way more robust, but there's still a gap. There's still some times where I'm like, I just don't quite feel like it's as flexible as a person might be. In some cases, it can help, and that's the business that we've been in for a while. But
Yeah.
there's also just an exclusivity almost in being able to interact with a person.
Yeah, or at least to know that a human's on the other side of the interaction.
Yeah.
You know, like I'm almost thinking, if an agent served me up YouTube videos, but the YouTube video was about a content creator or, you know, a person, I would still be inclined to watch the video, and I wouldn't care as much that the agent served it up to me.
Yeah.
It'd be like, okay, like on the end of this interaction is a human, and that's what I feel good about.
Yeah.
But the agent can be in the middle. So there's still a lot of explosive ways that agents and this intelligence can be applied to a ton of different stacks. And you're right, like it doesn't mean that, you know, people won't lose their jobs, but it's going to be someone who's using AI in that new role that's going to take all the jobs that are existing. So that's all really good stuff.
Yeah. Okay. So, what else have you been hearing about in like tech worlds, tech news?
Tech world, tech news.
Yeah.
You know, there's quite a lot of buzz on crypto right now.
What have you been hearing?
You know, so Trump this week just decided to include a couple of the stable coins, as well as like Ethereum and Bitcoin, in the U.S.'s treasury, essentially. And so, you know, there was a pretty big rally, specifically this week in some of those coins.
Crypto Summit.
Yep. Basically just saying that, hey, we are going to hold this currency, not backing it by the U.S. dollar, but if it's in the treasury, you're, you know, putting a little bit more confidence behind it.
Yeah.
So that was cool. A lot of people have been talking about that and kind of the like what that means for crypto. And I don't mean the exact cryptocurrencies. What I'm talking about more is like the blockchain technology that supports it. I think we're going to see, hopefully, finally, some more actual applications of blockchain where it does make sense in the world. Just, you know, based on the hype, I think more people that hear about it are going to be like, oh, how's that work? Oh, yeah, I'd like to invest in something that does something on the blockchain. So,
yeah, that's a fact. Like the doubling down on the crypto, like just I don't want to say industry yet, but in the whole crypto market is, I think, a step forward. I think the thing that really gets me interested is how crypto is going to collide with AI. How it already is, but how it's really going to collide with AI.
It's funny you bring that up.
Yeah.
I read an article yesterday that said one of those coins that Trump included in the treasury, and AI has already predicted what the closing price will be at the end of this month.
That's crazy.
Yeah, so, I mean, obviously any trader that's worth their salt has a model that's going to tell you what it thinks it's going to do. But it was a pretty big headline that everyone's like, hey, yeah, we have models now, AI, LLM models, that'll tell you. And so it was just like, you know, another wave of that, like AI is going to start doing all my trading for me.
Yeah. Yeah. Huh. Are we getting on the freeway?
Yeah. Tendo's scared of the freeway, so we're going to hop on the freeway here.
Uh-oh.
Don't spill your drink.
Okay, so crypto is one of those ones. It's like it's been around.
It's been around, but for me, technically, I like the fact that it stays in the hype cycle because I still want to see blockchain have its Web 3.0 debut and have that continue to run because I think it's still very valuable.
Yeah.
So yeah,
I don't think we've even scratched the surface of where it's ultimately going to end up.
Right. Like blockchain, you mean? Or
yeah,
crypto?
blockchain. Well, even crypto, but specifically blockchain.
Sure.
Like that's one of those technologies that even early on, being in technology, it's like we can see where this is going.
Yeah.
But things take time. They say that in the first, people always overestimate the impact that technology can have in the short run and underestimate the impact that it'll have in the long run.
Yeah.
And I think crypto is an example of that. I think AI is an example of that. I think
There's been a lot of money pumped into AI recently.
has there been money generated from AI?
I
Hasn't been.
don't know. Some people say yes, some people say no. On the whole, I think probably yeah. I think there's been a lot of money generated with people that are using AI.
Yeah.
You know, hard to say if it was the AI that did it.
Yeah. Right.
In some scenarios.
Yeah, that's true. Cool.
Yeah.
In regards to like this week, I guess, like, given the fact that there's like all this technology, given the fact that we're still running a startup right now, what do you think strategically is a good thought to like think moving forward, given the landscape?
That's a very interesting question. I guess the loudest thing that's talking to me right now in terms of where my attention is going to be, or where I think people's attention should be, is I also don't want to sound like a broken record, but keeping up with the entire AI cycle of what's being released, what's new, and how it can be applied to your tech stack is going to just be like the barrier of entry, like the ante to play. And so, to me, it's like keeping up with that stuff and then finding a way to be sustainable in that world is a question that I ask myself probably daily. And so I guess it's the thoughts around that I would push people to consider pretty regularly and at a very high level. Yeah, there's not like a single thing that is just overwhelmingly like everyone should move to this technology or everyone should move to this LLM, because I think we're still kind of figuring out what the industry standards are going to be with all that technology. So it's just like keeping up with the trends and then using AI to kind of figure out, hey, how can I use this in my world? That's pretty generic, I guess, for us specifically.
It's good to keep in mind.
Yeah, for us specifically, it's probably more so like, how can we bring all the best parts of all these LLMs to the user, right? So specifically for us, you know, if we have a user that's trying to do content creation or content, I guess, editing, you know, maybe I don't want the Claude 3.7 sonnet model that's super really good at, you know, coding.
Yeah.
You know, maybe I need to swap it out for like a ChatGPT model, or maybe they're asking something that's scientific. Okay, let's bring in DeepSeek. And so it's that same high level question of like, okay, this technology is here, how can we apply it? But it's, you know, going one level deeper into, okay, this is our world, how can we apply it here? Yeah. So that's what I'm thinking, but yeah, what about you?
Makes sense. My whole mindset, and we talk at length about this off camera.
Yeah.
But the main thing that's been on my mind is marketing.
Okay.
And even now, with all of like the AI models, there's a lot of investors that keep talking about product market fit. There's a lot of entrepreneurs that talk about product market fit, and product market fit is just a moment in when your marketing is really, really, really successful.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
so to break that down though, because I think a lot of people don't understand that, and they're chasing this nirvana of product market fit, and it doesn't, like, I'm not to say it doesn't exist.
Yeah.
It doesn't exist in the way that they think it does.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's a great launchpad. Product market fit. A lot of people talk about it. People describe it as this moment when you have a few hundred customers, a few thousand customers that absolutely love what you're doing and they can't get enough. Or they'll describe product market fit as a moment when they're telling everybody about what you're doing and things are spreading like wildfire. It's like imagining going into a store if your product was a physical item and it just being off the shelves.
Yeah.
Downloads are crazy. You're seeing that hockey stick graph. That's product market fit. And they're like, we know it when we see it. But that's not helpful. They're not wrong. That's the thing, but it's not really helpful. It's not really clear.
It's also binary. Everyone thinks it's binary.
Yeah, exactly. It's binary. You either have it or you don't. You either achieved it or you haven't. You either hit that threshold or you haven't. And it's why it's become so popular, and I think it's been misconstrued, is a whole other story. But the term was coined in the early 2000s, and then it was really popularized by Mark Andreessen as something that people need to focus on if they want to have a successful startup. And really, it's like a filter for a lot of investors to say, do we want to invest or not?
Yeah.
When we've done our looking, it looks like product market, like the way that I would describe product market fit, this is where I think there's a big misconception, and I think it can do more harm than good if you don't do enough digging, is product market fit is a moment. It's a moment, and it's a fleeting moment of when people understand and like your product. But it's not the thing that people should be focusing on, because it's a byproduct of marketing.
Yes. It is a moment, but it's also a journey. Like, you can achieve the fit at any one moment, but you don't stop. You don't be like, hey, it's fit. It fits, and I'm done.
That's why I think it's a byproduct of marketing, in the sense that marketing is the journey, because marketing doesn't stop.
Sure.
That's where you're interacting with the people. The way that I look at marketing, the way that I define marketing is, it's the process of engaging with your market. And when I say engaging with your market, I mean learning and teaching your market, learning from your market and teaching your market about the thing that you're working with, the thing that you're.
I agree with that.
To take it one step further, by teaching, or by learning, I mean changing your behavior. So in a way that aligns with your goals. So if you're marketing and you are communicating with a specific group of people, you might learn that when you say something one way, they're much more likely to receive your product than if you say it another way.
Right.
And so if we're going with this definition that learning is changing your behavior, you can change your behavior so that way you align with a thing that's more receptive. And so it's on the same token, the more innovative a product, the more revolutionary products, the more new a product is to somebody, the more education you're going to have to give that person. And so part of marketing is teaching. It's taking this idea, this product, this thing that you're working on, or this thing that you have in your head that you're determining whether or not you want to work on, and saying, hey, does this make sense to you? And if they say, yeah, it makes sense to me, then it's like, okay, well, let me teach you a little bit more about that. So when I do give it to you, you know how to use it. And that's a thing that goes completely unnoticed or overlooked when we just talk about, have you achieved product market fit or not? It assumes that the person that's supposed to achieve product market fit or not understands marketing. And I went back and I looked through some of these older blogs when they first talked about this stuff, and there's never any mention of the whole field of marketing. And I'm like, marketing is something it's a field that's been around for over a century.
Right.
There are titans in marketing.
Oh yeah.
And there are people that really understand marketing, but they don't. We're operating in silos. And so you have people that are making great products, but they don't know how to communicate it, and so it dies out. Then you have people that are marketers, but they're not in that space right now. And I think there is starting to be more of an overlap.
Yeah.
Because of the nature of the internet. But product market fit is, I think, a crucial thing. It's something I've been thinking a lot about. But I think underlying that is the whole function of marketing. And I think that in a world where there's so much technology coming out, there's so many variations of the thing, having a market that understands you, that you can communicate to, that you can learn from and be in sync with, is like the apex. Like, that's the thing that's going to be going to cut through the noise the most when it's so easy to replicate technology.
Yeah, there was this quote, I think it was Rory Sutherland, that said, and you might know this off the top of your head, about either creating a market or bringing your product to a market or bringing your market to the product.
He said something about marketing is innovation. He said you either come up with a product and find an ingenious way to market it, or you find out what your market wants. Then you find an ingenious way to deliver that a product, or
which I
think
gives a lot more context, because when people talk about product market fit, it always feels like they're chasing after a market that already exists.
Chasing the dragon.
And they're going, yeah, exactly. And they're going, we'll get it when we launch this. We'll get it when me
Yeah.
say this. It's like, well, you haven't even thought about the fact that maybe you need to make the market.
Yeah.
Like maybe you need to think about this completely different of like,
Yeah,
your
yeah.
thing is so revolutionary that you need to build the market to
Yeah.
then sell to. So, yeah, I think you're absolutely right on all those things on PMF, product market fit.
PMF, the elusive PMF. And so I don't know if we're doing our like specific community, the super secret Founders Drive community yet, but when we do it, we'll go over some specific actionable ways where you can talk about or where you can implement product market fit or marketing strategies that can get you to product
Yes.
market fit. At least the things that we're doing, things that we're learning from, things
And the
that we're
things that we
trying to-
found successful.
Yeah.
And we will absolutely share all of that. So definitely stay tuned to that. And then obviously like and comment below if you guys are watching this on YouTube.
Yeah.
That really helps the algorithm.
And subscribe.
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 Awesome.
Cool.
See you in the next one.
Peace.
Let's go outro.